Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture of general medicine where I make a dreadful topic easy to learn, and for that I shall be referring to a very useful resource, which is the Mind Maps for General Medicine by MediStudyGo. Now, why is this book so useful according to me? Because this is a colorful book where everything is represented in a pictorial format in bullet points, wherein you do not need to go through any bookish boring language for all your answers. Just 2-3 pages of each mind map for one chapter and you're sorted. So if you want to get this book for yourself, you can log on to any e-commerce website like Amazon, Flipkart, even DentalCart, and the website by MediStudyGo and get it for yourself. With that, let's get into the lecture for today, which is chronic kidney injury. So as I always say, every topic must be studied under certain headings. And for that, starting this topic with the first heading, which is introduction. So what is chronic kidney disease or chronic kidney injury? It is a spectrum of long standing, which is more than 3 months of disease, which is progressive in nature. The symptoms are progressing, the damage is progressing. So there is irreversible worsening of the renal function and a decline in the glomerular filtration rate, which is the GFR. End-stage renal disease is an end manifestation of chronic kidney disease, wherein it is a severe stage of CKD with GFR of almost 10 to 15 ml per minute, which is highly low. So what are the causes of this disease to happen? Now, this disease can happen because of several types of deformities in the renal system. Either there can be some obstruction, inflammation, necrosis, or vascular changes, which leads to decreased GFR or filtration capacity of the kidney. Coming to the first one, which is glomerulopathies, wherein the glomerulus is involved. That can be because of crescentic glomerulonephritis, wherein the glomerulus is being blocked because of deposition of maybe antigen-antibody complexes, which leads to obstruction. Secondly, there can be membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, wherein proliferation happens in the basement membrane itself, which leads to deranged structure and filtration rate. Then there can be systemic diseases like diabetes mellitus, systemic lupus erythematosus. So diabetes mellitus is the most common cause for chronic kidney disease because the kidney is functioning more to filter out a high content of sugar present in the blood right now. Then there can be interstitial diseases wherein the interstitium present in the kidney is deranged. It can be because of chronic interstitial nephritis, chronic pyelonephritis, and tuberculosis. All of these increase inflammation rate in the tubules, decrease their lumen, and hence decrease the GFR. Then the next one is obstructive disorders like the presence of any calculus or tumor, which is going to obstruct the tubules of the kidney and decrease the filtration rate. Next, we have vascular disorders like essential hypertension and vasculitis due to SLE or PAN, wherein the cardiac output is going to be deranged, heart function is deranged, which is going to lead to compensatory loss of function by the kidney. Lastly, there can be congenital disorders like polycystic kidney disease and the medullary cystic disease, wherein some cysts are being present in the kidney lumen and it is going to lead to a decreased glomerular filtration rate. So this is the wide variety of etiologic agents and diseases which are going to lead to chronic kidney disease if they are not treated timely. After we know the etiology of a disease, we need to know how the disease progresses and what is the pathophysiology. So we know that a chronic situation happens when some damage has happened in the past. An acute injury which was not treated correctly usually leads to a chronic injury. Chronic injury cannot happen within a day. So, an incidence of acute kidney injury in the past is present, and then add on to that some risk factors like diabetic nephropathy, hypertension, any polycystic kidney disease, or chronic glomerulonephritis. These risk factors, along with the past history of a disease of kidney injury, is going to lead to an initial insult to the kidney. This is going to lead to compensatory mechanisms in the healthy glomeruli, which leads to their hypertrophy and hyperfiltration. So any insult which happens in the kidney is going to try to correct it on itself. So it is going to tell the glomerulus to work more. Working more is going to lead to hypertrophy and hyperfiltration. So this leads to proteinuria because the kidney is trying to function more and it is going to release out albumin into the urine. So protein is going to be increased. Now this starts with microalbuminuria, wherein albumin is released into the urine. Now, this is the prognostic marker of chronic kidney disease, wherein microalbuminuria is present. This means the body is trying to filter out more. The kidney is in a hypertrophic situation right now. So this leads to release of inflammatory markers because this is a marker which stimulates the immune response. So much of albumin should not be filtered out. So the body is now going to try to compensate for this. How? There is going to be interstitial inflammation and fibrosis within the kidney because inflammatory markers are going to increase. And if any inflammatory marker cytokines are increased, they either cause inflammation or they cause scarring. If inflammation happens, it is going to lead to a pro-inflammatory state in the body, which leads to all the complications involved in an exaggerated inflammatory response. On the other hand, if fibrosis occurs in the kidney because of continued damage and hypertrophy, it is going to lead to shrunken kidneys. Shrunken kidney means shrunken response, less response. This is happening where 90% of glomeruli are going to get sclerosed and scarred and the function will not happen, which leads to end-stage renal disease and a severe situation of oliguria, wherein the urine can be as less as 10 to 15 ml per minute. So this is how the pathophysiology of chronic kidney disease follows along. Now, this pathophysiology is going to lead to several symptoms in the patient which are going to present as the clinical features. So what are the clinical features? The common features which are present in any inflammation shall be present. First of which is nausea, vomiting, and loss of appetite. Secondly, there is going to be pulmonary edema because the fluid is going to be contained in the body itself and less filtration is happening. There is going to be shrunken kidney, less output, high content of protein in the urine, leading to proteinuria and hematuria, which because of blood in the urine. There is going to be peripheral edema because of fluid retention, anemia because erythropoietin will also get filtered out, and bleeding because platelets are also not going to function correctly. Now, the ions in the body are going to get deranged. The calcium is going to decrease, which is going to lead to bone disorders, fractures. Phosphate is also going to be decreased because all these ions are going to be increased in the serum to compensate for the electrolyte imbalance. There is going to be pruritus, which is itching sensation. Renal osteodystrophy and periarticular pain is going to be present because the kidneys are going to be hypertrophied, shrunken, and they are going to lead to pain in the back. There is going to be uremic pericarditis, which is because of excess uric concentration. There is going to be inflammation of the pericardium around the heart. Arrhythmias and hypertension because of increased potassium concentration in the blood. That is a situation of hyperkalemia. So this is how a patient of chronic kidney disease is going to present to you with the clinical features. After we know the clinical features of any disease, we need to know how to diagnose the disease and come to a confirmatory diagnosis so that we can move on to managing and treating the disease. So the first thing which we do is to estimate the GFR. Estimated glomerular filtration rate is going to be decreased highly. Then we do urine analysis to rule out any specific gravity contents of protein, RBCs, platelets, etc. We see a fixed specific gravity, protein in the urine, hematuria, which is present because of blood being present. Eosinophils will also be present if the cause is an allergic reaction. Granular or broad casts are going to be present. 24-hour creatinine clearance will be decreased. Then we do blood tests, which are also going to show increased creatinine in the body, increased uric acid, and increased blood urea nitrogen. So these three things are going to be increased in the blood tests. Ultrasound is going to show you shrunken kidneys, and normal size is going to be present if polycystic or some diabetes or HIV related kidney disorder is there and actually the kidney is not deranged. That cases are going to show a normal size of kidney. Lastly, advanced imaging technology can be used like plain CT abdomen, MRI, and renal biopsy to rule out what sort of obstruction at which stage and of what type, benign or malignant, is present in the renal system. So this is how you can come to a confirmatory diagnosis for end-stage renal disease or chronic kidney disease to be present. When you do the investigations for any disease, you can also categorize the severity of the situation and the disease which is present. In that case, we can classify chronic kidney disease according to the glomerular filtration rate which is found. So the classification of CKD can be done into 5 categories and subdivided the third category into A and B. This is on the basis of glomerular filtration rate. Normally the filtration has to be 90 ml per minute, but if it goes on decreasing in this amount, the severity of the situation increases and staging count increases from mildly decreased to mildly to moderately decreased to severely decreased and kidney failure. So less than 15 is known end stage renal disease. Also, each stage is further classified based on albuminuria, how much albumin is also lost. So A1 is when there is no loss of albumin, A2 is when loss is present, and A3 is macroalbuminuria, where a severe loss of protein is there. So this is how you can categorize chronic kidney disease and see the severity of the situation. According to that, you move on to treatment for the patient and manage the patient. The first treatment is always going to be supportive, where the diet has to be taken care of. Adequate calorie intake is required, but the protein has to be less in amount because already kidney is functioning more to filter it out. Then avoid nephrotoxic drugs like NSAIDs because they are going to increase the load on the kidney to be filtered out. Potassium balance is maintained by adding on ions like calcium, insulin, and bicarbonate so that the hyperkalemia can be counteracted. Then there is renal osteodystrophy patients can be present because of excess phosphate in the body. So you restrict the phosphate in the diet. Phosphate binders can be given like calcium carbonate, aluminum hydroxide gel, which go in the body and bind to phosphate. Vitamin D and calcium supplementation can be required because that is also going to be decreased. Because if kidney is diseased, RAS activation is not going to be there. Vitamin D absorption is not going to happen. Therefore, calcium absorption will not be there. If proteinuria is present, we need to give ACE inhibitors and ARBs so that the load on the heart is decreased and the hyperkalemia doesn't affect the overload on the heart. In cases of hypertension, we can also give beta blockers so that the cardiac output of the heart is maintained, and it is a target that less than 130 by 80 mmHg of pressure can be maintained in the body so that the load of the kidney is not taken up by the heart and thus it cannot lead to heart failure. And if anemia is also present because the erythropoietin is not being formed correctly or filtration is happening in excess quantity, then you can give erythropoietin in the form of subcutaneous or IV injection, intravenous iron along with B12 and folic acid supplementation to avoid the occurrence of megaloblastic anemia. If bleeding is happening, then we need to give coagulating agents like desmopressin. And if none of this works and the fluid retention in the body is increasing, creatinine level and urea level is more, we need to perform dialysis. And for that, we need renal replacement therapy, wherein peritoneal dialysis, hemodialysis, or renal transplantation might be required in severe cases where the kidney is so shrunken and fibrosed that it cannot function even with dialysis. So this is how you can manage a patient timely and adequately. Depending on the severity, the treatment can be chosen. Coming on to the complications of this disease, wherein the treatment, if not provided timely and correctly, can lead to anemia because if serious amount of erythropoietin is being filtered out. Metabolic bone disease because calcium is going to be lost in high quantity to maintain the electrolyte balance in the serum. So bones are going to get weakened. Proximal myopathy because the muscles are not going to act properly, calcium being absent. Dialysis disequilibrium where the dialysis is also not functioning fine. Dialysis dementia, which is the patients undergoing dialysis usually experience state of confusion and not remembering things, thereby leading to dementia. And lastly, malignancy can form because any acidic content present in the renal system because of poor filtration can eventually convert the benign problem into something malignant. So this is how the disease can progress from a chronic kidney disease into end-stage renal disease if not treated correctly and timely. And with that, we can just compile this lecture off. But before signing off, we must solve a question every time we study a topic. For example, if I give you a flashcard and an MCQ over here, why does bone disease occur in CKD? Because the calcium is being replaced due to disturbed calcium phosphate metabolism. And secondarily, it occurs that the kidney is getting affected and bones get affected. Which of the following lab findings is typical of CKD? Decreased creatinine? No, it's increased. Decreased urea? No. Increased serum creatinine? Yes. And decreased potassium? No, that's not right. So this is how you can flip over, see the answer and read the explanation. Now, where are you going to get these questions from? These are available on the app by MediStudy Go, wherein you can use the resources like notes, mind maps, videos, flashcards, and MCQs. All these are available on one app in iOS as well as Android. And if you would like to compile all your topics in under 15 minutes like this one, then do subscribe our channel on YouTube by MediStudy Go. Like this video while you're at it and drop a comment below this video if you have any doubt regarding the topic or procurement of the resources which I have mentioned. Keep watching us for more such videos. Thank you.